We've got some breaking news. British police have opened an investigation into rape and sexual misconduct allegations made against comedian Russell Brand. In a statement on Monday, today, London's Metropolitan Police confirmed that following an investigation by Channel 4's dispatches in the Sunday Times, the Met has received a number of allegations of sexual offenses in London. The force said in a statement today, again, we have also received a number of allegations of sexual offenses committed elsewhere in the country and will investigate these. The offenses are all non-recent, it added.
In a video posted to Rumble on Friday, Russell did not directly address these allegations, but he directed his followers to stream his next episode of Stay Free on Rumble, which he posted a link to on X, formerly Twitter. I mean, Bree, this is the formal process that you and I discussed. And the allegations are serious, which we both agree to. And I want the process to take its course. I mean, again, he should have his moment of time in court to defend himself. But if the allegations do turn out to be true, then there should be repercussions. Yeah.
So previously, Russell Brand has pointed out, he said, these allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies. And as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual, he says. Now, there's going to be an investigation that gets into the bottom of those claims. We do know that one of the victims went to a rape crisis center following her interaction with Russell Brand, so there is some kind of contemporaneous evidence here. And I do think that this will be, frankly, beneficial to the discourse, to the extent that that matters, if we don't have to rely on our kind of personal feelings of is this right or is this wrong, or do I believe or do I not believe? And if there are actually criminal charges and a conviction, then I do think that gives social media companies or advertisers or what have you more legitimate standing to say, I don't want to work with this person. I don't want them to be able to monetize on these apps. I don't think that changes much about what I think are the free speech rights to be on the app. I do have a problem with the idea that because someone has gone through the criminal justice system, because they've been convicted of a crime and even served their time, that they should no longer be able to use what are now constructively public forums. Yeah,
I mean, I think you should still be able to be on the forum, and advertisers can decide if they want their dollars going behind someone who was convicted of some type of a crime, if it does come to that. But again, this is what I've always advocated for. I've always believed that Russell Brand should have his fair day in court. And I think most people are saying before we judge him or rush to conclusion, let's look at all of the evidence. And as you stated, we know that there is at least a pretty serious track record of one of the victims going immediately to a rape crisis center. That is evidence that cannot be overlooked, even by individuals who may want to come to Russell's aid. We have to be as open-minded with assessing all of the evidence, just as we want others to be open-minded about proclaiming his guilt.
Yeah, I'm curious about whether or not there are any statute of limitations that may affect this case. Seemingly, there are not. I was trying to give a quick Google, and I'm not. Nothing immediately comes up. But it is interesting. There is this note by the London police that none of these cases are recent. They're all non-recent cases,
which he sort of alluded to in his statement.
Yeah, and this is what's so tricky about it. I think it can be the case that he behaved badly and did things that he might be criminally liable for, and also that the timing of these investigations coming after he has no longer been useful to the mainstream, starring in mainstream movies, being in mainstream context, but instead having taken this path toward, calling truth to power, singling out elites, the things that he does do on his show, that's the moment where they decide to raise these non-recent allegations.
I think that's a good point. A lot of people will see this and they will say, do I really trust it? I mean, if all of this stuff occurred years ago, why now? And to your point, Bree, is it only because he's criticizing Hollywood or mainstream media or mainstream political figures? And I think we do see a very interesting pattern of people who are no longer useful. I think about Kanye West, and I'm not saying that I agreed with his statements at all, particularly the anti-Semitic ones, but people see this pattern of celebrities who decide that they no longer want to be in the in crowd, criticizing the in crowd, and the end result usually being negative for them, whether it's financially or in Russell Brand's case, potentially even jail time.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this on the show before. I do think that I'm trying to work through this.
Yeah.
I do want to say sometimes there is a push for people to have takes that I think is really destructive to the discourse. I am always trying to vet and test my own views for ideological consistency. So if I'm raising a hypothetical, it's because I genuinely don't know how I feel, and I'm trying to work it through. And that's why I raised certain issues with Max Blumenthal last week, and I continue to do them because my gut says that there's something wrong with unbanking Kanye West. I also found his remarks to be deplorable, but my gut says that a bank is more akin to a public utility. And if we are in the position where those kind of basic services, like banking services, water, power, internet access, use of public tolls on the highway are stripped from you because somebody somewhere tells you, doesn't like you or your past behavior, even if I agree that I don't like your past behavior, that seems to be too subjective and really dangerous and liberty stripping in a fundamental way. And my question that I'm still wrestling with is whether or not being allowed to monetize a YouTube account is the same, whether that is more akin to an employer being able to fire an employee because they violated, workplace behavior or the optics are bad and customers don't want to work with you if you're there.
An employee of the entity.
But even contract employees, let's say, I brought up to Robbie last week in an Uber driver context. Does Uber have a right to say, you're very publicly now being known for this bad behavior. We don't want you driving our cars anymore. It makes us look bad as a company. I don't know. I'm still wrestling with whether I think that's on par with saying someone can't use a bank. But I do believe that it's a slippery slope, and what is unambiguous is that the U.S. government coming out and trying to pressure companies to come out one way or the other,
which we know from the Twitter files, it is indefensible. And I would say, there's nothing, like this isn't a serendipitous moment, I think, for the average layperson looking at what's going on with Russell or whether it's Kanye West or a whole host of other, even Elon Musk and what he's going through right now. And many Democrats saying that he should not have been able to purchase Twitter now. Actually has too much power.
Well, he didn't want to purchase Twitter. Remember, he tried to back out last minute.
He did, and they wouldn't allow him to. And so I think you're right. I think we really got to sort of figure out, Bree, in terms of utilization of these social media sites and generating revenue from them. If a person partakes in some type of bad behavior or behavior that typically or may lead to some type of a conviction, should they not still be able to partake in that utility? I'm not certain if I would disagree with that, because I'll give you an example. I do a lot of firearms stuff. There are a lot of guys who have been convicted of crimes in the past. They now have some of their rights back. They have the legal rights to own guns. Some of these guys create content on YouTube to promote firearm education and proper usage. Should those guys not be able to partake in the utility of YouTube and then generate revenue? I think they should. But should there be limits? I'm not exactly certain on that. Yeah,
I'm inclined toward more leniency, especially if I have ambiguity. I would rather incline toward allowing people to have kind of maximal freedoms. I also think that people who are convicted and have served their time shouldn't have their franchise rights stripped away from them. I think, we were talking about Hunter Biden and the gun charges a lot and what people are allowed to do after they've made these kind of mistakes in their lives. And I would love to see some of the commitment that we're seeing out of the right to individual liberties extend toward the franchise and having felons be able to participate in democracy again.
Well, some did, like the Koch Foundation. They promote allowing formerly convicted felons to have their voting rights restored. So there are some of us on the right.
I think there was a ballot measure in Florida to
it failed,
I
believe.
No, it's the Republican legislature who attacked the ballot measure. I think the people voted to re-enfranchise, but there was a political battle.
And we talked about this earlier. Sometimes I think there is a difference between Republican and conservative voters and the actual Republican representatives that represent us.
100%.
And I think most conservative voters would agree that if you've done your time and you're a productive member of society, then you should have your rights restored.
Yeah, well, we will have no shortage of conversations about how elected representatives don't reflect the interests of the people they represent here on this show. Please stick around. We'll have more Rising for you right after this.